always been motivated, not necessarily by money itself, but, by the reward that comes from hard work.
You're listening to the Real FI Podcast, where we discuss time-tested tricks, techniques, and strategies for pursuing financial independence today, so that we can enjoy a better tomorrow. Financial independence isn't about getting rich quick. It's about cultivating a foundation to grow financially, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Let's figure out how to kick the 9 to 5. Here are your hosts, Patrick and James.
All right, how's it going out there, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my co-host, James Rippion. How's it going out there, James?
Good, man. Hanging in there. Nothing too serious going on. We're about to kick off a good conversation here with Casey, and looking forward to it.
That's right. Casey, how are you today?
Great, gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me. Snowy out here in Denver, Colorado, but here we are.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on the podcast today to talk about financial independence, your journey, how you got there, what your goals are this year. So, James, let's kick it off and get this thing rolling.
Casey, how's it going, man? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, where you got started in your investing career, and kind of just fill us in a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, thanks both for having me on today. I'm part of the rental property dudes, which we'll probably get into. I'm only half of the dudes. Austin couldn't be here today, but I'll represent us proud. He'll be tuning in. So I grew up actually in a suburb of Seattle, Washington, currently in Denver, Colorado right now. And my FI journey has become a very popular term these days. Started when I was pretty young. And I say that because I was always interested in money. I was the guy that, like my son now, I actually have 4 kids, and my 6-year-old took his Power Wheel and stocked it up with goodies from my pantry and sold them to neighborhood kids this past year. I thought that was pretty cool. And that was me as a kid. I mean, when I was really young, I was doing anything I could from an entrepreneur standpoint to make a buck. And when I was 11 years old, I actually illegally worked as a paper boy. And back in the day, people actually had papers delivered to their door. I was the one racking the papers on my bike over my shoulder every day of the year, including Christmas, Christmas and Sundays and Thanksgiving. Those are the biggest days with the biggest papers, right? And so, I mean, I was there, grew up with 5 siblings, so one of 6. And, we weren't rich, but we weren't poor. And needless to say, I didn't have any allowance. So as a result, I had to kind of buy my own way to the movie theater. I had to buy my own way to hang out with my friends and to go buy things that I wanted. And so I was always out there getting it rolling. And fast forward a little bit, right? My real estate dream, and we'll talk about this, kind of was born around the end of my high school, kind of moving in. I actually did a couple of years of service in a third world country. I lived in Ecuador, and, had this pipe dream of starting a hotel chain. I know it's kind of a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was Marriott or what it was that inspired me, but real estate always seemed kind of cool to me. And then obviously when I saw the realities of the financials, it's a little bit of capital required to get into hotel ownership. So I scaled that back a little bit to something that I could actually manage. And I jumped into real estate in 2016.
Gotcha. Tell us a little bit about growing up. You started slinging papers for the newspapers and doing that growing up. Did you have any role models that kind of pushed you to become an entrepreneur and pursue those kind of things? Or was this something that just naturally transpired inside of you?
It was more natural. My dad instilled a work ethic in me. It was the situation growing up. I didn't get an allowance. I didn't even get paid for chores, right? Like we were out there in Seattle, it rains a lot. So we would on Saturdays get a bucket, like those Home Depot or Lowe's buckets, right? And we had to fill those with weeds. And on a good day, if we could fill one, we were done. If my dad was ornery, it was 2 buckets, man. Or if we complained or whatever. And let me tell you, like, I can't get my kids probably to fill 1/10 of that bucket. But it was just something that, was instilled in me early on. But as far as the financial piece, like I mentioned, I wanted a 13-inch TV, man. And back in those days, you guys aren't probably much older than me, about the same age, it looks like. And
Yeah,
it was a 13-inch TV VCR combo, right?
I was just about to say that. It had the
Boom.
VCR on the bottom, right?
You dang right
Yep.
it did. And when I was a kid, I got the original Nintendo. Like, I was alive when that thing came out, which is weird to say. Like, we have a Switch now. And anyways, so that was my first taste. And then I realized, man, like, we only had one TV as a family, one. And I wasn't even allowed to watch what I wanted. And I know knew I wasn't going to get cable in that bedroom, but I could play video games and I could put a VHS tape in there. And
That's
so
right.
I'm pretty sure Happy Gilmore was one of my first VHS tapes that I put in that sucker. But I mean, I worked my tail off to get enough money to buy that TV. And man, that was like this huge milestone. It was this sense of gratification that I don't think I ever got sick of. And in fact, I had to reschedule on you guys yesterday, and I apologize for that, because my wife and I just bought a Range Rover. And so that kind of tells you kind of where I started and where I'm at now. But the market is crazy for anything right now, for cars, for housing, et cetera. And so, we found one and had to jump on it right away. And I was at the dealership till 8:30 p.m. closing that sucker last night. But I mean, always been motivated, not necessarily by money itself, but, by the reward that comes from hard work.
I've almost found that it's like conquering obstacles is a great way to describe wanting to build wealth. It's not necessarily for the sake of money and what money can get you, but conquering those goals gives you a big sense of satisfaction along the way.
100%. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, it's like the art of the deal, and the journey behind it. That's what I always feel like when I accomplish, these huge goals, is that gratification. And then once you finally hit it, you have that moment of excitement, and then it's on to the next thing. You're chasing the next dragon down the rabbit hole, as we all say. Well, that's huge. I love that too, because I was an entrepreneur just like that, with the lemonade stand, doing the paper route, trying to flip like Pokemon cards and Pogs.
Pogs all day. Pogs, baby.
Get them big old triple
That's
slammers,
right.
trying to sell those at all that stuff. Yo-yos, that was huge in like middle school and everything. So I was on the same boat. And then in high school, I went to an all boys private school, and we would sell. I would always sell candy and chips out of my book bag. So I'm on that. I've always been on that same grind with you. So I really love that. Well, give us a little bit of background on how you really got started in real estate. I know you initially were thinking, let's go big, let's get a hotel. But wind that back a little bit and tell us how you really got started investing in real estate and where that journey is now.
I'm a lifelong learner, and I've actually been head of 2 global learning organizations at major companies, and learning became something that when I was a kid, I hated books, right? But I always was absorbing knowledge and information. So it's always seeking out mentors, always learning from what was on the TV, always watch, movies, Richie Rich, right? Like anything I could take advantage of, I was absorbing that. And then eventually, as I got older, I started to actually enjoy books. And now I have read so many, but they've helped me along the way. And as a result of this, I started to learn what it was to make money, what it meant, how to make money, what money actually mattered. And I always kept coming across a similar theme that, millionaires have an average of 7 income streams. Also, if money's not working for you while you're sleeping, you're just working for money. So these things would just stick in my mind. because I'd read them or listen to them or hear them over and over and over again. And I thought to myself, what could I do to make money work for me? And so as I started to think and think about, the hotels and all those, grand ideas, I was like, well, I'm, probably not going to be a professional athlete, even though I had aspirations that, I loved sports of all kinds. That's like crazy money. It's stupid money, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm probably never going to get to that point. Should I start a business? And I kept thinking, what could it be? And so just kept coming back to real estate. Every time just kept coming back to real estate because I was like, well, I can figure this out. Like if all these dudes can figure this out, I can figure it out. And then there's the crazy stat, which everybody's heard, that 90% of millionaires actually became millionaires through real estate. And what's cool about my story is I became a net worth millionaire through real estate. And we'll get into that a little bit too. But when this just became a decision for me. And so, I got married young. I was 20, how old was I? 23 years old when I got married, 25 when I started having kids. I was still in college when I got married. Put myself through college, working at a pizza shop as a full-time manager, worked 55 hours a week, full-time student year round to pay off my school. And so I left college without any debt. So I was in a decent financial position, but I still wasn't making much money. You know what I mean? And so when I got my master's, I finished with that. And I said, I'm going to invest in real estate. And so I took the measly bonus that I got from the company I was working at the time, and I managed to scrape up like $15,000. And to me, $15,000 at the time was a pretty good chunk of money. Turns out it wasn't a good enough chunk of money to do much with, right? But this was back in 2015. And so the end of 2015, I start actually kind of midway through, I was like, I'm going for it. We're going to make this happen. Found a real estate mentor who had done hundreds and hundreds of flips, actually has a base of like 250, maybe 300 plus rental properties that are like the cash cow of his business. And I sought him out, went to his office, sat down with him, asked him a bunch of questions. He gave me some assignments. One of those was to go read Gary Keller's book about, millionaire real estate investing. So I did that, went back a week later. It was like, boom, I'm ready to go. Right. He's like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. He actually told me, now reflecting back, he's like, I've had hundreds of people come to me because like same situation as you, wanting to invest, wanting to learn more, wanting to get kind of my knowledge. And he's like, you're one of about 5% that have actually done anything with it. I said, oh, that's crazy. Like, I don't like investing my time if I'm not actually going to go out and do it. You know what I mean? So exactly. I went out and did it with 15 grand that I have. I literally put everything I had into my first rental property. And, I found the deal, found a realtor, and one that actually sold us our personal house. And I took him to a town about an hour and a half away from my house where I could afford property. And we started looking. And the first house I walked into, there was a dude in his underwear on the couch. He was a renter, smoking a cig in his house. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Right. That was my first thought. I was like, what the hell am I doing? That was the first house we walked into. Oh my gosh. Luckily it got a little bit better from there. Like this house was a disaster. Instead of doors, they had like draped carpet or like curtains. It was unbelievable. Oh my gosh. It was
sounds
so
like
disgusting.
textbook value add right there.
Yes. But at the moment I couldn't value add anything, James. I was pretty much broke. Like if you think about dropping that money in. And so we looked at like 20 properties that day. I had a list of like 40, narrowed it down to about 20, narrowed it down to about 10 after the visit that were potentials, narrowed it down to 3. Boom. My top one I made an offer on, undercut them a little bit, just seeing what I could get. And they accepted it. And it was crazy. And I was blown away. And I was like, whoa, this is too good. This is awesome. And then I was like, what do I do now?
Yeah. Now what?
Now what? Right? Now what? They've accepted this. So boom. Next 30 days, as I'm getting through the financial process, I have a full-time job. I have 2 young kids at the time. And we just started going. I just started looking. And one of the things that I couldn't really find is how to be a kick-ass landlord. Right. And so I actually, over the years now, grew my portfolio. People kept asking like, dude, what are you doing? Like, share with your tips with me, blah, blah, blah. So I actually wrote my own book, which you could see up. Whoop, whoop, there we go. It's up here in the corner. I've actually got a copy here, but it's how to win in rental real estate after the deal. Because guys, I was in the situation. I was like, how do you manage a rental property? What do you do when you close? Everything's about like, get rich, buy 1,000 rental properties and you'll be great. But they don't tell you that it is not passive. For anybody that thinks that rental real estate is passive income, you have heard wrong. It can be passive if you get to the point where you're completely just the owner. You've got people managing everything underneath you. But guess what? 90% of people that get into this business, that's not the situation. You're the one managing the door. And what I ended up finding out is a lot of people suck at this. So if I could be a little bit better than them, I can succeed. And then I started buying investor properties because they're like, I hate being a landlord, or I'm so terrible. And that's kind of how I started to build my portfolio. And so how my business partner, Austin, comes into the mix, the rental property dudes. After I bought that first house, actually, I wasn't even closed. I went under contract and I called him the next day. I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe this. Because I met him in Ecuador. We became best friends. He lives in actually Orange County, California. And so I was like, dude, you're not going to believe this. Like, this deal, we talked about going to business together 10 years ago now. Are you still interested? He's like, absolutely. I'm still interested. Tell me more. And it was like 3 or 4 weeks later, he came out and we went looking at a second suite of properties, and we put that down, I think 6 weeks after we went under contract on our second property. And then we bought 2 more together that year. So 4 in the first year, all single family homes, and boom, just from there, we just kept adding and adding and adding. And as I told you guys, just before we started, I doubled the portfolio last year. In 1 year, we doubled our portfolio. So we went from 30 doors in one state, Colorado, to 60 doors in 2 states and growing.
So what do you think was the biggest contributing factor to that exponential growth that you're experiencing with your real estate? Because, a lot of people think that they can just get into it and it's going to happen overnight and it's going to be the quickest thing ever. You sound like you're seeing a lot of quick success. What do you think is contributing to that?
Well, nothing's quick in the world of success ever, right? There's no overnight success. I think we can all agree on this podcast. Like, nobody became an overnight success. Sorry, I got a dog over here. For us, it was door by door. So the focus was the next deal, the next deal, the next deal. And so what actually happened was we started just going after kind of those single families. And then we kept racking and racking and racking. I think we got 10 single family doors. And then we decided, let's go to multi. And so our first multi deal, I've been looking at this property for, I think, 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And it came back on the market because I missed out on it the first time. Well, this investor didn't even hold on to it for more than 2 years. And I came around at the same time because we were always looking, James, always looking, Patrick, for deals, right? Always on the MLS, always asking our realtor. And then actually what happened was one of the deals we closed was my mentor was selling one of his properties, sold it to us. And his realtor that he was using locally, we started chatting with him. He met us at the property and he started to do off-market deals for us. And that's really how this took it to the next level, right? Because we were just doing straight MLS, like what's on Zillow, what's on realtor.com, like what's out there. And at the time, like you could make it happen, right? And we made it happen and we were able to get, more bargain basement type deals. But we had a criteria and that was important. We didn't just buy anything. We bought 2 or 3, particularly 3-bedroom. And it had to be close to 1,000 square feet and it had to be rent ready. Like we had to be able to buy it and rent it. Now that didn't mean that it was in pristine condition. It just meant that it wasn't a piece of crap, right? It meant that we didn't have to put 10, 15, 20,000 into it before we could make $1. So our critical point was it has to fit this criteria, period. It can't be in the gangster part of town, period. And number 3, it had to cash flow day one. And our biggest deal was efficiency. So time to vacancy or time to occupancy was a big thing for us. I would go and Austin and I would sit there and we would do open houses. We would do appointments personally, fill these properties. Again, we managed these ourselves for 5 years, right? Like we didn't have any property management at all until last year. Like that's a whole different story. But we learned along the way, and we rented most of these properties within, I'm not even kidding you, I think our average was probably 7 days to fill a door.
That's amazing.
This is from showing, like marketing, showing, application, you're in the house.
I love that. And there's so much to take in there. But I think one of the biggest things is, all right, so you're buying these properties. This is during 2016, 17. So
Yep,
around
18.
Around that time, there was plenty of foreclosures on the market. So you could get the pick of the litter of a foreclosure, most likely, that didn't need that much work. Now, but how were you financing, buying all these properties in a year? Because you're saying you didn't want to do heavy renovations. You wanted to get it in, clean it up, maybe throw some paint, do some very light reno and get it rented like right away, or if not, rent it right away. So you weren't really value adding any of this or really doing the Burr method, I'm assuming. So where were you getting all this capital?
Great question. So we started with a pretty good financial base or foundation in the sense that both of our credit scores were good and both of us had a little bit of cash. Now, that little bit of cash kind of kept piling onto itself. So what we did at first was 100% of our own money went into buying these properties. And then as we got 2 and 3, we started to use a little bit of our rental cash to buy the properties. But I'm talking like 80 personal, 20 rental. Like we still couldn't buy a full property based on the money we were getting because we were trying to grow quickly. And what ended up happening is we got down to 50-50. And then, kind of the pendulum swung a little bit. And at some point, it was 100% of our rental investment money was going back into the properties. And actually, last year, we did put some personal money back in because we had our biggest deal. I mean, it's over $1 million, our first $1 million plus deal. And we definitely had to put some personal money into that because it was a big chunk of change. But to answer your question, very short, it was all conventional, my man. All conventional financing at the time. 20%, 25%, even 30%, depending on the lender, because we had to do some portfolio lending and they require 25, 30%, down. And so we did this for a little while. And then last year, we actually jumped into more unconventional financing where we were actually able to do portfolio loans. And we have also done a couple of cash out refis at this point, because the market, as you know, in the past 6 years has gone gangbusters in the right direction for us. Sucks for the first time home buyers, but it was great for us. And, we're in the same challenge everybody else is right now. Like, how do you find a great deal, to be an investor? But that's kind of how it went. So it's conventional first, and then it was cash out refi. And then this past year, and now moving into 2022, we're moving into more the construction loans. So we are doing rehab on some units. We've changed as we've grown. We've been able to kind of grow out of the baby phase, I would say, of investing. But we did on every property, we did capital improvements on every single property, right? Every single one we've done, we've been able to turn rent, increase rent as our tenants have turned. We've enhanced, our first apartment building was an 8-unit apartment building that I get 3 or 4 messages a day from people trying to buy that place. We bought it for, I think it was $416,000. This was 4 years ago, $416,000. Every unit that turned, we renovated it. One by one, because it was rented out. It was 100% rented out. But guess what? They were renting each door out anywhere between $425. I'm not kidding you, $425. Now these are 1-1s. So it's moving away, 1 bed, 1 bath. I mean, we're talking anywhere from 500 to 700 square feet. So much smaller, different economics. But as we renovated these and the market turned, now we're actually like the rent that we started was like $3,200 for all 8 doors. Now we're getting $5,700 out of that building a month. I mean, it is a cash cow for us because we improved each unit and got it up to this point, and then, you know, obviously raised rent on tenants that are there. And the building is 3 of the existing tenant or the original tenants are still there. The other 5 have gone on and you know, we've refilled it. But that's kind of how we've grown over the years, and there's so much more to that, but to keep it at high level for the listeners.
That's great. So
Yeah,
when you were getting new tenants in there, was it stressful for the ones that you had that were staying there when you were doing these renovations? Were you shifting them around from unit to unit as you were going through this renovation process? How did you manage that specifically?
Yeah, so literally one door would open. So there's 4 units on the bottom, 4 units on the top. We would just reno the unit that was vacant. Didn't cause any problems with the existing tenants. I mean, we're not talking about like the Ritz-Carlton of 8-unit apartment buildings here. So, you know, they were used to this kind of stuff happening, and we turned them quick. I mean, I'm talking less than 2 weeks, we would renovate an entire unit. When you got 500 to 700 square feet, it doesn't take a whole lot.
Right.
And we did actually a couple times renovate a unit, and an existing tenant would actually say, "Hey, I want to live in the new one." And so we'd be like, "Okay, great, but it's $100 more in rent." Right.
Mhm.
And so we did that twice with 2 different tenants that actually have stayed. We tried it with a third, didn't work so well. We actually had a tenant die on the couch in one of those apartments.
Oh, no.
That's a whole different story, you guys. Like in my book, I throw real talk, right? Like real talk about what it's like to own business, rental property business.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. What
Sure.
motivated you to manage your own properties? Because I know a lot of people are going to look at that and think it's absolutely insane.
Cash flow.
Well, there you go, cash flow. But you've got these trade-offs. Now
right.
you are on the opposite camp of passive income.
Yep.
Right. So like talk about that trade-off between passive income, you know, quote unquote passive income with real estate, and the benefits you're getting from not paying a property manager. Because I know, you know, fees are going to range, you know, depending on the type of property and maybe in the area that it's at. But you also have these other benefits that I found, which are hands-on control and, you know, a lot of opportunity costs that you're able to account for. So why don't you talk about the motivation behind self-managing?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's actually why I was able to write a book, because I self-managed for 5 years, up to 30 doors, right? My business partner and I did. And I own some by myself. So of the 60, 10 of those doors are mine by myself. And then 50 I share with the other dude, whose name is Austin. And we're under contract for 2 more single families right now out of state. So the motivation literally was cash. Because I was like, if I hire somebody out, number one, I'm not going to have as much money coming in. I can't grow my business. And number 2, I'm never going to learn. So it was kind of like starting as a paper boy. I knew, hey, you know, I got to start somewhere. Like if I have to mop the floors, dude, I did that at a restaurant when I was 16, 17, and 18. I did the worst of the worst, right? Cleaning up after people eating in the restrooms. Like, dude, whatever. But it paid my way through at that time in my life. And now I don't have to do that. Now I actually have cleaners that come to my house every other week and clean my house, right? But I went through the freaking ringer, okay? My wife and I went through the ringer. My business partner and I we went through the ringer, like hands-on experience. One of the things that I learned just from a general statistics standpoint when I was, learning executive is 70% of what people learn is by doing. 70%, like do the freaking math on that, right? So if you're just reading a book, I'm sorry, you're not going to become an expert in that. There's a reason they say 10,000 hours or whatever the thing is, you know, to become expert at something. Like it's true. You're not going to become a pilot or a great pilot until you get in the simulator. And then you're not going to become great until you get in an airplane and become the co-pilot. And then you become the pilot and you grow from, you know, a smaller commuter jet up to a 37, then to a 57. This, you know, you get it, right? And the reality is you cannot become an expert landlord or an expert business owner unless you are in it, doing the job, whether it's cold calls as a sales professional, which Patrick, you could resonate with that. You're mentioning that to me earlier, or whether it's managing the property and getting the phone calls at 2 a.m., which I was actually able to avoid, because there's some things that you do that you can get to that point where you manage your tenants and you manage your business and you're proactive with these things. And, that's just how it rolls. And so over time, we learned all of these things, all of these tips and tricks. And then we realized, hey, we're doing okay. And, we can get to the next level. But it wasn't until we went through the grind and we built the portfolio, we built our own cash cow, right? And some of these rentals that we have, you guys, like, we are going to be doing well off of these for years and years. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to run into crap. Okay. We had a $25,000 foundation repair a couple of years ago. That hurt. That took all of our capital that we were using to grow. So we couldn't grow for a few months until we raised some more capital and worked that direction. But we've actually never gone for outside capital, right? It's always been us. It's always been the business. It's always been what we're trying to do. And I've had a lot of people kind of reach out and say, hey, would you mentor me or would you invest with me, et cetera? And, I've entertained a few deals, but just never had to do it. And until this moment, my business partner and I, we're focused, we're locked in together and we're growing together and things are working. So that's kind of how we went from, we got to learn, man, gotta be in order to be the boss, you got to do the work. And so we now truly understand what it takes to be a great landlord. And I can tell you that I don't have to take those phone calls anymore. I don't have to take the angry tenants screaming at me anymore, but I still hear the stories, right? I'm still the boss of the business. So we have, weekly calls with our property managers, sometimes more if need be, but to get a status update and you hear the craziest things. But what's so nice about it is I'm not hearing that during the week. I'm not getting a 2 p.m. call when I still work a full-time job, right? I don't get a 2 p.m. call saying, man, this tenant called the police or they're freaking out or these tenants are fighting or somebody's in jail or whatever it is. So it's been a nice kind of growth and evolution for us.
So I know a lot of the people that are going to be listening to this are going to want to start off with a property manager. They're not going to have maybe the grit or the desire to maximize cash flow that you had. And they're going to want to pursue the more passive route. You've gone through the process now. You've been in it. You've done all the work. And now you've selected a property manager or two to do that work for you so you can outsource that. What are some of the key considerations that you had when you were interviewing these property managers? And what were some of the things that you saw that were just terrible with these property managers that were just unacceptable? Because I know, some of the property managers I've had have been great. And you come across those that just don't give a shit about your properties.
That's
and they
right.
just want to collect that 10% check. So what were some of the due diligence things that you went through to go find that great property manager?
It's such a good question. And it's actually one of the reasons why I hesitated so long to go property management route, because I've heard stories, read books, listened to podcasts that nobody's ever going to care about your property as much as you do. Totally true. Check the box. Also, nightmare stories about property managers where you're thinking you can get away with it or you're going to do better with your business, but turns out you're actually losing in the long run because they're not caring. They just put anybody in. They're not doing due diligence, you name it. So for us, it actually came through a repairman. We were hiring out our repair work. The number one and most important hire for us was a handyman that could be local, that could be there quickly on the, we trusted, could get the job done, et cetera. We actually hired a few, fired a few along the way, right? You're learning. And we threw a tenant, believe it or not, who was in a rock band. Yes, this story gets weirder. And this tenant was not young, right? We're talking probably late 50s, early 60s, in a rock band with this guy who did repair work. And it's hey, because our other repair guy was locked down with some other jobs. So we're fine, we'll bring this guy over. And what our strategy was, and James, I think you can appreciate this, is we always have somebody do a tryout, always, before we hire them. So we're okay, one job, not a big job, but one job. And if you do a good job, we'll give you another job. And if you do a good job, we'll give you more jobs. And that's how this happened. So this rock band guy, long hair, loved to talk, but super kind of cool dude. You know, he did a couple of repairs for us, and we're like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing, and he's cheap. Is this real? Right? So we used him for a few more jobs, and guess what he did? He plugged in as he would call us on the phone, tell us how the job went. He was very thorough, and I'm like, whoa, this is way better than my other dude. So already we're on a good start. And then he would be like, hey, by the way, my full-time job is actually manage properties. It's my full-time job. I'm like, okay, tell me more. He started selling me in Austin separately, right? Like different phone calls, because we're not in the same place. And so he would call us and update us, and Austin and I would split doors. So, hey, these are yours, these are mine, right? That was the responsibility of our management. And it was we used him for over a year doing repairs before we finally considered hiring him for property manager. And his rates were lower than anybody else in town, any shop that was like a professional business. It was him and his wife. They worked as a partnership, and she did all the paperwork and the cleaning and dealt with the tenants, like move in, marketing, things like that. He did all the grunt work. He had to deal with the tenants when they were upset, right? Or disobeying. He would go by and be the hammer. Like, are you kidding? You're not gonna have a couch on my patio. Like, dude was for real, and he would bring it. And I mean, like, he cared about the properties, and we would see it, and he'd tell us about it. And he's like, I told these people, I'm the property manager now, or I'm going to be, and the owner doesn't like this, and boom, boom, boom. He was better than I was at that crap. And so I realized, okay, maybe it's time to let go. Maybe it's time to give him the opportunity. Again, we didn't give him our whole portfolio at once. Again, same strategy. We said, okay, we'll let you manage this building. It was our 8-unit apartment building that was biggest pain in the ass for us, because 8 tenants in one roof, trust me, you're going to hear complaints. I hate this tenant in 4 is a piece of crap, or this tenant in 5 came home naked, and this tenant in 6 slept on the freaking patio with their boyfriend. Like, those are real things. So we're like, okay, this is the biggest headache for us. We're going to give this one to you and give you a trial. And I mean, it wasn't more than a month or 2 in before we're like, it's worth every penny. And then we were still keeping all of our single families and kind of managing that. We've worked out a deal with him and given him our whole portfolio in Colorado now, because we were able to find a good deal. Because we're like, well, we hate to get, fleeced on 10% of our money coming in for these single families. So we were able to negotiate something with them for the whole package of single families, which are less work, right, than an apartment building for a property manager as well. And then we invest in Arkansas, out of state. And in Arkansas, I actually had connections that I had built through my real estate network and trusted a guy to the core. And so started to find some off-market properties. He had a brokerage and a property management business. And I was like, well, this is kind of great. So I was out there on a business trip. We went out and looked at properties together. He said, here's the situation, was able to negotiate where, hey, like, we'll pay you X%, but we're not going to pay you to turn each door. Like, that's on you guys. So we're able to work out a good deal there. And they've been managing our properties. We actually had to fire the first set of folks there and hire a new set. It's better. But again, you're going to learn as this goes, and you have to stay in touch with your business. If I'm going to give anybody advice today, it's, listen, you can't just set it and forget it. Even when you have property managers, like, you have to be in touch. You have to look at every expense. We had a water heater bill come in this week for $2,200 because the water heater was like in a really random place. And we're like, no, we want a second opinion on that. That's ridiculous, right? Like, even if it's in a crazy place, we got to get a second opinion. And same thing with like the mailboxes. Apparently we bought we bought a 15 unit and an 8 unit building. So 23 units in one deal. And apparently the previous owner didn't have mailbox keys for the tenants. And we didn't find out about it until months in, because we're not managing. And they're like, oh yeah, they would just like wait for the mailman to get their mail. And I'm like, this is the weirdest shit I've ever heard. Like, what is happening right now? And so
that's crazy.
I know. And it's like almost a year in, we're just figuring out about this, but they wanted to charge us like $1,800 to rekey 15 boxes of mails. And I'm like, no. That's Not
It had to be
happening.
cheaper just to buy mailboxes.
That's what I said. So we got the quote on buying the mailboxes, and then we got another guy who could rekey them for $800. But that's what I mean. Like if you just let the property manager do whatever, it's not going to work. So we actually have like a routine, and we tell them, hey, anything above $250 in expense, you got to run it by us.
Well, it's a really important thing to do, because I know property managers are going to have their relationships and their go-to contractors that they rely on. And it's just super easy. And, it might not be necessarily their fault, but they have that relationship going, and it's just easy to fall back on that one contractor. They know that's just going to get the work done, notwithstanding the price. So I definitely see that 100%. You guys got to be following up with your property manager, making sure they're getting a good deal for you, because, you got to look out for your own interest.
That's right. Always.
And I also want to tie in there. So this is kind of interesting, because what you just said is exactly where I'm at in my kind of real estate investing particular moment in my life, where we're about to hit 23 doors, and I'm been contemplating going back and forth. The last 2 years, the first week of January, I've called and had conversations with property managers, and I'm kind of at that point where, when's it going to be worth it? And to tie back into what you first said is, I think around that 30 door mark is the mark. But because my wife and I have been managing all of these for the last 3 years, now we know what the expectation is. We know how long it should take to rent one of these properties out. We know what it costs to get a hot water heater fixed. I know how much it costs to replace a fan, and do all that work, and kind of have our own contractors, and you have your own systems in place. So you can easily tell if someone is going to pass the smell test right off the get-go. And I think that's really important for the people out there that are getting started. And also, like you said before, the whole reason that you didn't go with property management in the beginning was the cash flow. So in the beginning, you don't know anything. So you're entrusting somebody else to manage your portfolio. You're taking that 10% in the beginning. So if you would have started with a property management company from the get-go, giving up that 10%, where do you think your portfolio would be now in relation to that, in relationship to that? Because that would give up so much of that cash flow and equity and everything else in the beginning. I feel like that would have really stunted your growth. I mean, how do you think you'd be where you are today if you would have started with property management from the beginning? Do you think you'd be further along? Break that down for us.
No. Short answer is no. Again, I think you need to learn it. You need to go through it in order to be great at it. And for us, it was just something we were able to do. So it was a sacrifice we were willing to make. Austin would fly out here multiple times, sometimes more than once in a couple month period. And we would market the properties ourselves. I would go on the weekends I'd take my whole family with me, guys, and we would market properties. I made it a family business and experience. Lots of driving, lots of nights, lots of weekends, lots of phone calls, but I knew that I had to do it. I knew that eventually I wouldn't have to do it as a result of doing it. And so, Patrick, to what you just said about like, you're doing it yourself, right? And you know what it takes. Like, I know that it costs between $2,500 and $5,000 to do a main sewer line replacement, including excavation, backhoe digging, rental of the backhoe, all labor, all tools, costs, etc. Now, if somebody comes and tries to charge me $7,500, I'm going to call them out on their lie, right? Or go find somebody else and be like, no, sorry. And that's the beauty of learning through experience. And so now I know, and now I know what kind of tenants you don't want in your property, right? Mm-hmm. Like at the beginning, the rental market wasn't quite as crazy as it is now. In fact, I just posted something on my Instagram today. It's the highest rents have been in my lifetime. Actually, 12% year over year increase. Think about that, 12% year over year increase. Now, the housing market's kind of going the same way as far as prices. So if you own a house, your mortgage isn't going up like you're in good shape, but that's just not the reality for most people. And so what I'm saying is it's a ripe time to be an investor, but you have to understand the game. And so people like us, we have a leg up on those who don't. What I've told people over and over and over again is I say, hey, listen, you know who I'm primarily buying from is landlords who couldn't cut it.
Exactly. Me
And
too.
I'm coming in and I'm doing a better job. And I'm actually charging market rent. Whereas some landlords are like, well, I'm afraid, they're not going to find a, good renter or whatever. Well, if you price your property at 400 and its market is 675, the only one losing out is you, right? And by keeping it so low, you're also attracting a lower quality tenant. Sorry, just the truth.
Exactly.
So what kind of tenant do you want in your property? What kind of business, what kind of cash flow do you want from that door? Are you going to do what it takes? And so Austin and I actually balance each other a little bit. I'm more of like, dude, you got to raise rents. We got to go up $50. That's the market. We got to go up 75. We used to do longer term leases, longer than a year. Not anymore, man. Like that bit us in the ass so bad when the market took off. We thought it was security. Well, it was at the time, but then we realized, shoot, now we're under market by $100 or $150 and we can't do anything about it legally because we screwed ourselves. But guess what? We learned from that, and that's okay. Like it happens and it's okay. You just got to gotta swallow it, right? And over time, you get better and you tweak and you get there. And then, I actually wrote it in my book about what you should look for when you hire a landlord, what you should look for when you hire a handyman, what you should look for in a lender, what you should look for in a business partner, because all those things are critically important. If you choose the wrong person, you better be able to be ready to move on and fire them and get to the next person. Otherwise, it's going to be you that's hurting. And so my growth exponentially was because I did it myself. I learned, and also by doing it myself, Patrick, I was able to go around and like look at other properties, right? And well, that one's for sale or whatnot, and find a few deals that way. So it was beneficial more than one way.
They've got a saying: hire slow, fire fast.
That's right.
And it sounds like you employ that with people that you're doing business with. So that's great. You've been building your real estate business since 2016. That's 6 years in now. Tell us, give us a breakdown of what your portfolio looks like, and tell us some of the numbers. What's the whole portfolio worth? What kind of cash flow is it bringing in? What's your LTV? Like, what kind of equity do you guys have in it? Give us a little bit of details about where you're at now.
60 doors, and it's a combination of single family, multi. Our biggest property is 15 units. So we have a couple of eightplexes, we have, quadplex, a couple of triplexes, duplexes, you get it. We're actually under contract for 2 more doors right now. And we might do our first short-term rentals, which is exciting. We've been thinking about it for a while. And so we'll be at 62 here in February because we went under contract the first week of January. And we're looking at another 4-plex right now. So moving up and moving on. But as far as gross rents, we did just over 600,000 in annualized revenue in 2021. And our goal for this year is 725. I think we're going to go past that. But what I was telling Patrick is I'm actually not looking for as many doors of an increase this year as I am cash flow. So I'd rather have a higher cash flowing door than just buy a building that actually, yes, it's good in some senses, guys, but my experience is the more people you have under one roof, the more of a pain in the ass it is and the harder it is to manage. And so more and more people with, everything that's happened in the world the last couple of years, they want a house, they want land, they want a backyard, they want an office. You're not going to have an office with a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids. Okay. So we're trying to get something that is going to be higher value kind of ticket in rent, a little bit more going in maybe, but cash flow per door is better. And our gross kind of a net income is about 20%. And actually, Patrick, one of the things I want to circle back on is, how we grew also so fast is because we put 100% of the profits back into the business, literally 100%. And we just said, we're not going to live off of this money. This is not our money. This is a business. We're going to run it as a business. And that's how we've done it. And literally the only time we've taken money. The only time we've taken money is last year. We put in a big chunk of our personal money because we didn't have enough business capital to buy those doors out of state. And so we decided, hey, it's going to be a big personal sacrifice because, like, you know, we're doing better in our careers. We each have 4 kids and families and goals and things like that. And so we started to say, hey, we're going to put, you know, X amount in, and then we're going to pay ourselves back over the next year from the business. So it's really like still the business money going in. And so that's kind of how we've grown. And we know that at some point it's going to be, you know, really beneficial for us in a long-term wealth standpoint. But we look at those numbers all the time, right? Occupancy is a big deal for us. We're 100% occupied in Colorado right now. We've got a few doors that we're still trying to fill in Arkansas. But that's our number one focus because we really want to hit those goals of 700 plus, you know, revenue. 20% of that approximately should be net income.
That's huge. And what I like to hear and like to see is how strategies change over time. Right? You started with single family because that's what most people do. You got a 4-plex, you got an 8-plex, you got 15 units here because you're trying to grow and grow and grow and get that cash flow. And then you're still acquiring single families. And now you're like, hey, look, we want more per door, excuse me. And so you're thinking Airbnbs now, right?
Right.
How can I get the most cash flow out of this single asset? And it's because you've shifted your business to kind of find what makes the most sense for you two. And now your business is at a point now where you can really look at it and go, okay, how much headache comes with this $150, $200 a month cash flow, $400 a month cash flow? And, you know, where's the best use of our capital? And you're kind of at a point now, but I think you said, I think is over $8 million in real estate. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I didn't actually mention that part. I forgot all the things James was asking me. We have over 6 million in equity, like owned real estate right now, with multiple millions. I couldn't give you the exact number. I'd have to go look it up in equity in those properties. So if I were to say like ratio, we probably have 40 to 45% equity in our properties, which is
That's
awesome.
amazing. And that gives you the opportunity now to really look at your business. Like you said, you're looking at those key performance indicators and really seeing, hey, instead of continuing to just grow and grow and grow, let's really focus on the things that we want to focus on, the things that make the most sense for our business, because you're at a point now where you've built a really solid business. I mean, you know, $4 or $5 million worth of equity in, 6 or 7 years, just being 2 dudes is pretty huge. So that's really amazing. What's the ultimate goal? You know, where are you guys trying to go with this in the next 3 to 5 years?
I mean, my ultimate goal is like, I'm going to never stop, right? Like I just have this mentality. I'm like, people are like, whoa, you have 60 doors. I started and it's like, people want to get in, they want to go, but they never really do. You know, it's like the dude that's on the bench that's like, oh, I'm going to get in the game, I'm going to be the all-star, but he doesn't put in the practice, doesn't actually get off his butt and stop binging Netflix, right? And so for us, there is no cap, Patrick and James, but we do have a goal this year to hit 75 doors and 725,000 in gross revenue, gross rent revenue. And I think based on how the year started, we're under contract with 2, we're looking at 4 more. It's probably going to happen pretty soon. We might just soar past that, which is amazing. However, Austin and I have talked about this a few times. We're like, what is the goal? You know, like what is success? And we kind of talk to each other like, if each of us are bringing in $250,000 in net income, not gross, but net income each, that would be considered like a true success. Because guess what? We could literally live off of that money forever. right? Like you got that money coming in, and then you're still going to have enough money to invest and reinvest in the business. And so, like I said, we don't take a penny out of the business right now. And could we have? Absolutely. Like we could be doing that every month. We could take a few hundred, few thousand here, whatever we needed, but we don't, because growth is still the number one objective.
So working up until that point, do you guys have a timeline in mind? Because I'm sure you guys have tried to do the math where you're both going to be taking that 250K home and buying your Lamborghinis and living in your big house and doing all the cool stuff that people want to do with their financial independence. Do you guys have a timeline in mind?
I'm 37. So is Austin. Actually, we have same birth year, same birth month, believe it or not. Like by the time we hit 40, we would both like to be clearing at least like 150 each. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be taking it, but if we can get to that point, like that's a huge deal for us. And then, what we'd really love to do is just like, I'm an entrepreneur, man. Like I wrote a book and I didn't ever think I would write a book. I hated books, but I sat down and wrote a book during 2020. Everybody was, watching TV and complaining about how crappy the world was. Like the world did suck, but you know what? Didn't stop me from growing my business. Didn't stop me from making more money. It didn't stop me from chasing my dreams. And so, I think it just comes down to the ultimate success is enjoying life with my family, hitting new milestones, and proving to my kids that hard work over time, every single day through the grind. And my wife is working too, right? She works from home. She has a network marketing business. She's amazing. She's hitting milestones herself. Like we're proving to our kids, like, this is how you do it, you guys. They don't, like, we don't need, our kids don't need to have jobs when they hit high school. My oldest just turned 12, but I got him out there cleaning trash cans with the freaking pressure washer. He doesn't get allowance because he's not going to be a spoiled brat growing up, right? He needs to learn. And so to me, you guys, it's all about like the purpose of life, which is family, it's freedom, it's free agency, it's the ability to grow and improve and all those things. But money comes into that. Like to me, it's not a dollar amount, but I will tell you this: when I started investing in real estate, I calculated it and I was worth like $67,000. Like if I sold everything I owned at the time, paid off all my debts, I was worth $67,000. Now it's over 2.5 million in 6 years. And
that's huge.
I contribute that to real estate, period, real estate. And I'm going to hit 3 million plus. Like that's one of my goals this year is I want to hit 3 million net worth. And I don't share that to brag. I mean, friggin', there are so many other people that blow me out of the water. But for me, it's about tracking progress. I actually have a file on my computer that shows, I do it like every few months. I do my net worth and it shows growing. I haven't receded once over this period of time. It's about paying off the bad debts. It's about, it's more than just real estate, right? And I know this is a financial kind of podcast, financial independence podcast. So, I didn't write a book to become rich, but it's another source of income. Not a big source of income, right? Like I'm no New York Times #1 selling author, but I do appreciate what comes with it. And there's pride that comes with that milestone because I never thought I'd write a book. It's really cool. And all those things that kind of go into it. And so we've actually made money off of our personal houses as well. And we're looking at buying a mountain home. Actually, let me throw this out there. We live in Colorado, right? You ever been to Breckenridge? You ever been to Vail? You ever been to Aspen? You know what mountain living, like luxury mountain living is. It's been a dream of my wife and I's for years and years. And we knew that if we did this, we could eventually get that. So of course I'm an investor and I'm thinking
like delayed gratification.
Yeah. Like I'm not going to buy this just to let it sit there for however many days out of the year. I'm going to turn this into an STR, short-term rental, baby. So
Airbnb, baby.
That's right.
VRBO.
That's right. So we're almost to that point. Like that's one of our within 2 year goals is to buy like a multi-million-dollar, incredible sleep 16 people, bunk beds everywhere. We can go whenever we want. We book it out 200, 250 nights a year. break even if it's at that, like what a milestone. That would be so gratifying. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. That's what we're looking to do. There's no stop point for us.
I love all of it. I mean, those are great nuggets all around. So while you were talking, I was doing some quick math, and it looks like what you're saying is your goal by 40 is to double your current business, and to hit those 250,000 a piece numbers, you need to 3.5 times your business based on the 725,000 gross revenue.
Look at this guy doing math like on his iPhone while we're chatting. I love it. I love it.
20% cash on cash return revenue of that. So in your pursuit to that, what is the biggest obstacle to get you there?
Myself.
Limiting beliefs?
Myself, in the sense that it literally has hinged on me, right? And my business partner, obviously, but I don't view him as a dependency. I'm the dependency. What do I mean by that? It's action, man. Like if you're not taking the appropriate action to get to your goals, that's on you. It's not on the economy. It's not on anything else but you. And learning through experience, again, like that's such a big deal. But it's also lack of discipline. Like, am I putting in the hours? Maybe not. There was a couple of months last year where I was a little bit lax in making sure that I was cash flowing on certain properties out of state. Kicking myself, guys, but it was busy time and I just didn't want to deal with it at the time. And I've made up for that, but it's on me. It's about following up. It's about, no, like this is not acceptable. And we fired those property managers and we moved on. Right. But in the end, Patrick, it's me, man. Like if I want to go and grow to a certain extent, I'm going to have to go seed capital from somewhere. If I don't have the capital myself, I'm going to go seed it and go get another business partner. I got somebody who's trying to get me to buy into a pizza franchise right now. Right. Like I may do that. Who knows? But the reality is it is up to me. I'm actually doing you're going to like this. You're a numbers guy, right? So a couple of my first deals that I bought for under $100,000. Okay. I told you I had 15. You probably did the math of how I was able to get into those properties. They're now worth 200 plus. Okay. So I'm in the process right now of doing a cash out refi of 3 of my personal properties that I've purchased over the years that I haven't touched. One of them I only owe $40,000 on. Right.
There you go.
Pretty good.
There you go.
But I wanted to keep the cash flow. Again, I was growing and it was important to me. And I didn't need that cash. I could use other cash, et cetera. But I'm at the point now where I'm like, I could reinvest this cash, still cash flow over $500 on each of these doors.
Which is amazing cash flow.
Incredible, right? Which, dude, I'm getting like 800 on one of these doors right now. I mean, it's insane because like I said, rents are record high. And I'm just taking advantage of the market. But the reality is the market's telling me I need cash. The Fed's telling me interest rates are jumping this year. The stock market's telling me the same thing. And
your numbers are telling you that your return on equity is looking extremely low.
That's right. So if I can take this cash out and then repurpose it to grow, and now I have more cash revenues coming in, right? More lines of revenue coming in. Each door is a line of revenue, by the way. Like if you guys don't look at that, it's a line of revenue. You could have one door that's bringing you $100. You could have another door that's bringing you $10,000. It literally depends. It's probably a short-term rental, by the way.
Exactly.
And that's why we're jumping into that route is literally our property managers telling us, hey, this is a great city for Airbnbs. I wouldn't have known that. Like I do research, but not to that extent. Like help me out here. And I'm like, will you manage it? Yes, we do those too. Boom. Nobody I knew before was doing that. So instead of getting maybe $400 in cash flow for one of those single family houses I'm buying, our realtor told us that we could get up to 2,000 by STRing it.
There it is.
Boom. So it's all about repurposing what you've got and figuring it out from there. And so, like you said, like as I grew, I was very particular. I'm only buying this. I'm only buying this because it's what I knew. It's what I knew would work. It's what I knew would be successful because I had experience. Boom, 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 boom. I highly recommend that for anybody getting in the game. Do not diversify yourself to the point where you don't know what the hell you're doing. You have to become specialized in a niche. You have to. And then you can expand. Right?
Exactly.
Like Apple started with computers, you guys, many, many, many years before they did the tablets, before they did the phones, think about it, right? But they became a brand name because of X. They became expert in X and they expanded to Y, Z, W, you name it.
I think that's really important because you're going to get people who think they can try everything and accomplish flipping, wholesaling, STR, single family, multifamily, commercial. But what they're going to end up finding out sooner or later is that they're not actually doing any of those things. They're trying to teach themselves. And they're full of analysis by paralysis by analysis, whatever one it is. So I think that's super important.
Heck yeah, man. You said it. I could go on forever, you guys, but I mean, that's literally what we're focused on right now. And I want to get into the short-term market, as far as short-term rentals and see how we do. But again, listen, we're starting with 2 doors. We've got our base of 60. If these fall flat, we're good. It's okay. We can rent them out long-term and still cash flow 400 a door, I think was what they told us.
Or next year, you could sell them to somebody else who wants to Airbnb them for a premium.
That's right. And do you know what we haven't done yet, you guys? We have not sold one of our doors. Not one. We have not done a single 1031 exchange. We haven't even, we've considered it now in the last couple of years, but that's something that we are considering as we move on is, well, can we sell this and then buy up? That could be another strategy we jump into this year.
Game of patience.
Yeah.
So it's kind of blowing my mind a little bit here of how you've been able to do all this and how diligent you guys have been on just buying and holding and keep holding and keep holding. Now 5-6 years down the road, especially with the appreciation in the market, and what's nice is you didn't do anything too early. You didn't cash out refinance when you had 50 or 70,000 bucks in a deal. You haven't sold anything off, back in 2020 when the pandemic first started, and 1031 exchange anything too early. So now you're sitting on this huge nest egg of equity, and you have all of these different strategies that over the years, I'm sure you've done your research on to learn about. So now you have all these tools in your toolbox that you can use to, for that next adventure, and which could be one of multiple different things. So now you've opened yourself up after time, which is wonderful. The 1031 exchange is such a huge asset for investors that I think you'll definitely be able to do that and trade up. I've actually done 2 so far, on about to do a 3rd one. Nice. So I highly recommend that. But that's something that I do all the time, is looking at my return on equity inside of a property. And like you said, it's compounding those dollars to make you more dollars. And if they're tied up in a property that's cash flowing $300 or $400 a month, and you can turn that into a property that's making $3,000 or $4,000 a month, it's a no-brainer.
That's right. Hey, let me plug one more thing in right now. Another thing we're doing is I actually went to our we have a lender that has lent. Again, we've had multiple. We've tried out a lot of different things, but one lender has almost all of our doors in Colorado. And I went back to him and I said, "Hey, Tony, help us out with the rate." And we're getting a rate drop down with a very small fee into this. It's not a refinance per se. It's a rate adjustment. Did you know banks could do that? They can, right? I didn't really know that. Now my mortgage bank isn't going to do that for me on my personal house. Hell no, right? But on an investment property where you're not using a big national bank, okay, and that's another thing I'll tell people, local. They're the ones that are going to help you get into properties that a Chase or a Wells Fargo or somebody like that will never help you get into. avoid Fannie Freddie as long as you can, or as much as you can. However, it is nice to have a 30-year term. I will say that. So we have done that on a few properties, but you max out at 10. Everybody probably understands that. So leverage that. And we're going into the like 3.9 from one of ours was like 4.9. Another one was 5.2. Some of our other ones were at 3.9. I'm like, dude, you got us at 3.9 for these, and freaking come on. Like, we're the same.
You bought them at the end of 2018.
That's
when
it.
The interest rates were 5%.
That's
I
right.
was there too.
And so now we're doing that without actually taking any money out. We're saving on our payment. And that means, guess what? Our cash flow increases. Boom. Sorry, I forgot that. Until I'm like literally going back and forth with him right now in email, like, hey, let's figure this out.
That's huge. Well, when you have, $1 million plus at a local bank,
3 million with this guy. 3 million.
3 million with one guy. So then you're a not so little fish. Instead of $300,000 mortgage,
who would have
you're
thought?
Like, hey, I've got tons, right? But it takes time. It takes time. I think, I think all those things are great, and you're the first guest to really bring that one up. I hope to be at a point to be able to do that down the road, especially with all these interest rate hikes that are supposed to be coming.
That's why I'm buying now. That's why I'm refining now. That's why I'm doing some things that I'm doing right now. I mean, again, you got to be strategic, and that's part of the strategy.
And you got to know what's going on. Well, I think that's a perfect time to transition into our last segment, which is called The Big Picture.
Oh.
So, James, take it away.
Yes, sir. So, Casey, and everyone's financial independence journey, they're looking for those shortcuts to how to get there quicker. What's something that you do or know or implement that feels like a financial independence hack that is just one of those things that just seems to make everything simpler and happen quicker or better?
I'm gonna give you 3. Number 1 is marry up. Right?
That's that. Yeah, there you go. I haven't heard that
Marry up.
Marry up.
Damn right. I could elaborate on that, you guys, but let me just tell you, like, my wife is crushing it in her business right now. But for years and years, it was me. She was the mom. She wanted to be the mom. She kind of lost herself. She started her own business. She freaking loves it. She's an amazing, incredible woman, human leader. I look up to her. We share an office right now. I'm working from home full time. It's awesome to see my wife dominate her business. It gives me a little bit, emotions here. Second, rental real estate, man. Like, we've talked about it, but without rental real estate, I am not worth over $2.5 million today. I'm just not. I'm sorry, I'm not. And number 3 is never carry a credit card balance. So I use credit cards. I leverage the points. I actually had so many credit card points. I got an iPad Pro, an iPad Pencil, or a Apple Pencil, brand new watch. I cashed in on Apple when it was 10% off through the rewards points because of points. But it helps your credit if you stay out of big debt, and that's definitely helped me along the way.
I think what you said right there, when you were talking last about owing the small credit union or bank $3 million, made me think of a saying, and it applies to this credit card thing. When you owe the bank a little bit of money, it's your problem.
Yeah.
When you owe the bank a lot of money, it's their problem.
That's right.
They want to keep you happy. So avoid the credit cards, owing the banks these stupid little amounts of money that's not doing anything for you. And make sure that the bank is working with you on $3 million of real estate, where they're going to be reducing the interest rate because they want to keep you as a good client. So I think that's fantastic.
And they want you to pay that back.
Boom. So, and I have a line of credit that I carry with one of my banks too, that we, instead of refinancing, we just did a line of credit. And so we have a $96,000 revolving line of credit that we just pay down, use to buy more properties, right? As you get more cash flow. And guess what? It gives you access to that 96K if you need it. And then if you don't, you pay that sucker down, and then you've got money to use in the future. Sorry, another hack.
All right. That is the hack right there.
Oh,
that's the hack. Everybody, I've heard multiple people talk about it. I've had conversations with my bank trying to get a line of credit, but I just don't have enough with them yet for them for them to be willing to give me one.
Yeah,
But
that's the key.
That opens up so many doors right there. And that's how you get to 60 doors and
Mhm.
double your portfolio in a year for sure with something like that. All right. So are there any books, podcasts, or resources out there that you use or you would recommend for people on their financial independence journey besides the number one answer, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Hold
So
on.
any books,
That-
podcasts, people.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's number 2. Number 1's behind him on his left shoulder up there. That's number
Oh, that's right. You throw
Besides
this
the-
down.
Number 2 most answered book. What do you say out there?
All right. So I need to plug this fully. Okay. How to
course.
win in rental real estate after the deal. It's on Amazon. You can buy it Kindle or you can buy the hard copy. If you prefer the hard copy, I just like touching things and reading.
That's a thick book, man. You put some pages in there.
This is almost 300 pages, man. And it's like 9 or 10 point font. Like I killed this book, guys. Somebody told me, they're like, dude, you wrote 3 books in one. I said, I didn't know. First time author mistake, apparently.
I was going to say, how big's the font? Jeez.
It does have a lot of nuggets in there, you guys. I'm telling you, and some really funny stories about the FBI.
We'll link it.
breaking down one of
We'll
my
link it
things.
down below in the podcast description to your Amazon.
Awesome. But to answer your question, for me, it's having a real estate mentor. Number one, his name is Doug. He was a major blessing to me. He guided me to early success. You guys, early success is critical. Don't get into something and fail. You need to get into something that you can succeed in. Nothing's guaranteed, but guess what? You put in the research, you put in the time, you read all those books. Of course, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. You read all of them, okay? You get to a point where you're not going to be falling flat on your face out the gate. Doesn't guarantee success. Nothing does. A lot of it has to do with you. But knowing those things and jumping in, my mentor, I'm telling you, he really, really helped me succeed, and I will be forever grateful for him. And then the second is probably my business partner, Austin. He's kept me in line. We've worked together. We're 50-50 partners. Without him, I wouldn't be where I am today. Truth, right? And so I highly, highly recommend, the people you work with are super important. The team that you build is really important.
All right. I love both of those answers. Extremely thoughtful, but do you have any recommendations that our listeners would be able to go out and follow or pick up to help them out on their journey, since I don't think Doug and Austin are going to be readily available.
No, they're not. And I'm not giving last names because I don't want you to look them up. No, but Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor. If I hadn't have read that book, I wouldn't have been successful out the gate either, because although I got mentor advice, and I'm telling you, I have up on this shelf probably 15 real estate books that I've read, and every one of them has been great in one way or another. Again, I felt the need writing my book because I felt like nobody prescribed how to be a successful landlord, period. I was like, there's nuggets here, there's nuggets here. There's one chapter out of 20 that was dedicated on how to manage a rental property, but nothing that was like a full book. So I just wrote one. But Gary Keller's book, you guys, I mean, it's probably a book many people have read, but that one is amazing.
Awesome. So Casey, it's 5 years in the future. Okay. You're looking around you. You're looking at your business. You're looking at your personal life. You're looking at your villa in Colorado on the mountain. What do things look like to you? And what does financial independence mean to you? And just tell us a little bit about your life 5 years from now.
Financial independence to me means stress-free living. And to me, it means I don't have to worry about that $500 Costco bill, because yes, every time I go to Costco, it's like $500, right? You have 4 kids, you have 2 big German Shepherds. It's a lot of money, man. But you know what? Not having to worry about that $500 grocery bill, not having to worry about how much my cell phone bill is, not having to worry about where I'm going to get the capital to buy my next property. It's about finding the next property. It's about where I'm going to go on vacation, not can I go on vacation. It's about which car am I going to drive, not can I afford that car. Bottom line, like, Grant Cardone, everybody knows who Grant is, right? And yeah, he's bombastic. He is out there, talks about his private jet all the time, but dude knows his stuff. And I'll tell you, he preaches to people like you and me and most of the listeners, don't buy a personal residence, right? And then he just buys this like beach on Malibu, if you've been following his Instagram.
Yeah, but he has $1 billion. So
exactly. But that was his message was, listen, I sacrificed until now it doesn't matter. Like I've got so much money, it doesn't matter. And that's what I'm going for. Now, I didn't take that route. And in fact, my personal home has blessed me because I bought my first house, guys, in 2010. That's all I'm going to say. You can imagine how much I paid and how much of equity that has benefited me now 2 houses later as a result. But that's what it means to be, you guys, stress-free living. And I gave a few examples of what that means.
Love it.
And having that mountain home in Breck, hopefully Breck. Love Breck.
Touche. All right. Well, I know I've enjoyed this talk. I know James has enjoyed this talk. So break it down for us. What's the best way for our listeners to reach out to you, tell you that this was great, tell you that you sucked, buy your book, let the people know, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are on Instagram at the Rental Property Dudes. I started this account, I think last year, during the pandemic, we started this account. I thought it was before I released the book. I just wanted to share, and that's what I did with the book as well. So find us at the Rental Property Dudes on Instagram, and link to my book is out there. You can also search my name, Casey Denby, in Amazon. You'll find my book that way, or search the title, How to Win in Rental Real Estate After the Deal. You can reach us there. You can DM me. I respond all the time, actually doing some collaborations with some people, including you guys through Instagram. Reach out, and say, hey, you want to be on our podcast? You were on Evan's podcast. I love doing this stuff, right? I'm not getting paid for this. We're prime time. So yeah, you heard my kids and my dogs. Like, this is life, you guys. Like, I literally worked from 7 to 4 o'clock today, usually work a little bit past that, and jumped on this podcast. And when you do something you're passionate about, it's awesome. And I'm passionate about this. And at some point, James, even though you're not a big golfer, I can go play TPC Sawgrass whenever I want to. Boom. How about that?
Great.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys. James, send us away.
What do I say now? I don't know.
He's going to have to cut it real nice, real nice.
Yes.
We'll leave this in here.
Yeah, that's okay, man. I thought you were doing the exit, man. Cool. All right.
I wanted to throw it to you.
Glad for joining us, man. We had a good conversation. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.